Hello again, everyone. Welcome to another edition of Odyssey House Journals. I'm Randall Carlisle. I have a special guest today. My usual co-host, Rachel Santizo, is off taking a well-deserved vacation. Somebody told me she's down in Mexico having a lot of fun. I saw a picture of her kissing a dolphin.
A dolphin, yes. It was awesome.
That was pretty incredible, wasn't it? Have you ever kissed a dolphin?
No, I haven't.
I haven't either. We try to start out with a little sharing a little information or news, and I thought this was interesting, and I guess it makes sense. It's a study by Northwestern, and it shows that the rate of overdose deaths is increasing more in rural areas than in urban areas,
Okay.
which would make sense. And the explanation is because they have fewer services available.
Right.
And that would hold true in Utah especially, wouldn't it?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Tracy Maurer is our guest today, and one of the things we try to do on Odyssey House Journals is to give people hope if they're addicted or if they have an addicted loved one, that there's always hope that people can recover. You know, our
Absolutely.
Odyssey slogan is "We are recovery," but I think a lot of people, I co-facilitate a family support group, and a lot of the people think there's no hope for my adult kid. They're out on the street, they're heroin or meth addicts, and they're probably going to die, and I just don't see any end to this. And you're a wonderful example of recovery is possible. And you're doing such great things now. Tracy's a shining star in the Odyssey program. That's not why I have her on, because this podcast is not intended to push Odyssey House necessarily. So maybe you could just share the good, the bad, and the ugly of your life.
The good, the bad, the ugly. All right.
You want to start with the ugly?
Let's do.
Then end with the good?
Okay. All right. So my addiction started with a medical diagnosis back in '91, which caused me to have, 27 major surgeries.
27?
Yeah. In 4 years, I lived in the hospital more than I lived at home.
So we're talking a lot of opioid pain pills.
Absolutely. A lot. And after that, when I was done with the surgeries, I was what we call a functioning addict, right? I worked full time. I was a present mother, wife, all the things for about 10 years. I lived on Lortab and Percocet. In 2006, my doctor retired. I got a new doctor.
He said, Tracy, we're cutting back on all this stuff.
Absolutely not. He said, Tracy, the Tylenol is hurting your liver. We're going to switch. There's this new pill, Oxycontin, right?
You're kidding.
No.
And that was back in the day when doctors were being urged by the company that made Oxy to just give them all they want.
Absolutely. You got Oxycontin 4 or 5 times a day, and then you had oxycodone for breakthrough pain, right?
Which was another marketing gimmick by that
Absolutely,
company. Yeah.
absolutely. It wasn't a year later, I'd sold my house, my car, I hit the streets running. Not long after that, insurances stopped paying for Oxy, both kinds actually. So you had to come up with cash. My prescriptions were upwards of $2,000 a month.
Wow.
Yeah. I'm sure you're aware when you run out of Oxycontin, you get very sick.
Yes.
Very, very sick. So of course I started, had to sell drugs to pay for my habit, right?
So, and a lot of people don't understand this, but the chemical composition of Oxy is almost exactly the same as heroin, right?
Yes.
So
It is, absolutely.
So you switched to heroin
Yes.
and sold.
So my prescription would run out in like a week. And then I'm out trying to get money to buy more pills. And in my head, I don't do drugs, right?
I'm doing prescription
Right,
medicine.
right. But I had a friend, I was sick one day, and she's like, here, just hit this. You'll feel better. I promise you'll stop throwing up. You'll feel better. Yeah, I hit it and instantly better. It's the exact same thing. It's heroin, right?
But a lot cheaper.
A lot cheaper. Bam, there I was, selling heroin, doing heroin, still buying pills, right? And then the meth comes in. Yeah, it was awful. So, in and out of jail for I don't know, the next 10 years or so.
On drug charges or other charges too?
Other charges too. I was committing crimes, of course.
To support the habit?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Were you a good drug dealer?
I was a drug dealer. I don't know. Is there a good one?
No, I wouldn't say so. So,
Yeah. So, and then we didn't have things back then like medically assisted treatment. You could go to a methadone clinic and get help, but that was it. My first time going to jail in 2010 was the first time I'd spent days without pills, and I had a heart attack in jail. Still no medically assisted treatment. And then when I got out, I had a desire to stay clean, but when you walk outside for the first time and you're sober, and the whole world is different, right? Sun feels different on your skin. Everything's different. It's a scary place. So I started
because you
using...
haven't faced the world sober.
No, many, many years.
Yeah.
So I started using again to feel comfortable, feel safe, right? And went on another 5-year run until I got into drug court.
There are people watching who don't understand what it's like to be addicted to something like this, and the whole concept of being dope sick. Describe that.
Oh my goodness. Well, there's nothing I would not have done to feel better. I mean, you just constantly throw up. You can't hold your head up. It's the worst feeling in the world.
I've heard people say, I feel like I'm dying.
Yeah, you wish you were dying. You'd rather be dying for sure.
And so a shot of heroin instantly turns that around?
Absolutely. You feel normal instantly and can function again.
So you're out for another 5 years. What happened after that?
October 2014, I got pulled over. And I just told that officer, I said, let's just save all the problems. Not even play the game. Here you go. And I handed him an armload of drugs. Oxycontin, meth, and heroin. And he looked at me and he said, you need help?
No, I'm fine.
I just started crying and I said, I need to go to bed is what I need to do. So I woke up in jail the next day and I'm thinking, what have I done? So I bailed myself out of jail. And I knew at this point I was going to prison. I just handed him 3 felony 2 distribution charges and I knew what was up, but I bailed out thinking I don't have warrants now. Now I can do what I need to do, get my affairs in order before I go to prison. I had already been in so much trouble. AP&P was not an option. They gave up on me already. They won't supervise me. And so when I went to court, I knew that asking for drug court would buy me another month or 2, right?
Right.
And I went to observe drug court twice. I left. And then I called my attorney, and she's like, no, you have to check in when you go. So I'm like, oh, dang it, there's another 2 weeks. So I went, and I opened the door to drug court, and the bailiff immediately grabbed me. He's like, I got a seat for you right here. Okay, all right. I'm feeling confident, though, right? I have no warrants. I'm out on bail, and I'm just going to tell the judge that I want to be back on the regular court calendar. Buy me some more time. So I stand up and talk to the judge, and he said, he's like, okay, I can respect that, but can you pass a drug test right now? And I'm nodding my head, yes, and the only thing that could come out of my mouth is nope. And this is the moment that changed my life. He looked at me and he said, okay, I'm going to take you into custody, and we're going to have this conversation when you're sober. And I will never forget those words, because to me, that was the first time in my life that someone actually cared. That was Judge Skanke. And just, I swore I couldn't be mad. I was just like, wow, why am I going to jail? I can't even be mad at this guy. He's so genuine and sincere. And I swore that day I'd never look him in the eyes again and tell him I couldn't pass a drug test. And I haven't from that day forward, so.
He's it's pretty unusual, yeah, because you've had a lot of experiences with judges and everything, and it's unusual for a judge to understand and know that you were high at the time And he'd like to talk to you when you're not high.
Yeah, I was not capable of making that decision for myself.
Right.
You want to go to prison? Yes, I do. No.
And you're a great advocate for drug court because you successfully completed it.
Yes.
Right? And there are a lot of people who don't understand how that works. And basically it's a diversion and it tries to treat you without you taking up jail space, right? And
Absolutely.
screwing up your life, even worse.
Yep.
So describe and it's not something you just breeze through and it's just like an easy thing and
Oh
then
no,
you're done.
it's a lot of work.
Describe
and you
it.
have to pay for your treatment and all your drug tests. So I think another thing that was super important when I was in drug court was I started working my first job in, 8 years probably.
No, you were a drug dealer.
Yeah, right?
Well, that was a
So I got a
job.
legit job for $8 an hour to pay for my UAs. And I'm at work one day and I get a text on my phone. So in drug court, you have detectives, right? They're
Right.
unified narcotics detectives and they're on you. So I get a text on my phone, Tracy, are you here? I'd like to talk. At the same time, my phone rings and my front desk she says, there's a couple of guys here that want to see you. Oh, instantly, I'm sure my face was bright red. I was so mad. So mad. I went running down the stairs. I walk into the room, and there's these two normal-looking guys. No guns, no badges, there to see me. I'm like, wow.
Mormon missionaries.
Instantly took away every reason I had to fight, right? These were like,
Yeah.
and unlike AP&P, right? They come in
Right, they come in and it's
blazing, right?
Yeah.
So totally respectful. Hey, just came to see how you were doing. Let's go grab a cup of coffee. I
And who were they?
couldn't even argue. Detective Matthews and Ashby. And I've had them the whole time.
in plain clothes and understanding.
Absolutely.
What did that mean to you to just have two plainclothes detective not using force or anything else?
It meant the world to me. Yeah, like I said, I had no reason to fight, and I was ready when I heard that they were there. Yeah, but they instantly took that away, and I know who they are, right? But no one else in the room knew who they were, and they respected me for who I was and what I was trying to do, and they kept checking in with me often. They'd come take me to coffee all the time.
Really?
Yeah, it was great.
They cared about you.
Absolutely.
Genuinely cared, though, as opposed
Yes.
to it's a job we have to do.
After I graduated drug court, I got the opportunity to work with them for a year or two. And that's what I try to tell the people that come into drug court. It's completely different because they do care. I've sat in rooms with them where they're crying because of clients that they need to help, that they're at a loss, So, yeah,
I've
very
been,
genuine people.
I've been to drug court graduations, and they're probably some of the most uplifting experiences I've ever seen. And I don't cry very often, but there were tears in my eyes a lot when I heard people's stories. And describe the graduation.
Well, I have never missed one since my graduation. I go to all of them every quarter just to remind me, because I love the experience. We call them commencements now because graduation implies that there's an end, right? But it's a great experience where the drug court participant gets to come with a family member, mom, a child, a friend, and someone gets to share their experience of knowing and loving this person through their addiction and what they have become since being in drug court. Great stories come out of that.
And then at the end, is everything expunged? I was trying to figure
Not
that
expunged, it's dismissed,
out. Which means what?
which means your charges they're no longer there. They can't hold them against you. So they've been dismissed, and then we go through an expungement process afterwards. I believe it's 6 months afterwards. We can take them in and get it wiped off our records completely.
So there's new hope after drug court.
Absolutely.
As
Yeah.
opposed to the old system of you get out of jail, right? And you still have these charges on your record.
Right.
And you really haven't gotten a hell of a lot of help,
Right.
right?
Exactly. And then you're branded a felon forever, and it's hard to get a job and apartment. It's hard to live after that.
Yeah, it is. Did you ever run into any of those obstacles? Because I hear people talking about it all the time, saying, you know, because there's always a box when you apply for employment saying, do you have any criminal record or anything?
No, I haven't had any issues because obviously I work for Odyssey House.
Okay.
And they're well aware of my record. But I didn't have any issues renting either. And that's probably because I waited long enough after drug court. So they shouldn't be able to see my charges.
How would you respond to a person who hates drugs, who hates drug addicts, and says, these people ought to be in jail. Why are you letting them go through a court system and then they get off scot-free and they can pursue their life?
Do you know what we learn in jail? More crimes. How to get away with things. That's all we learn there, right? Jail's the worst place for a drug addict, I think.
And you were
And you
playing the
don't get help.
system right up to that point when Judge Skanke talked to you, because you
Yes.
were thinking, how can I do this? How can I do that? And it's, you know.
Yeah, he was going to let me walk out that day, and it'd be a month before I got back into the regular court calendar.
Yeah.
And yeah,
So now, this is when I say she's a shining star at Odyssey House. I've had the pleasure of being able to work with you because you've been at our downtown adult house for, I think, ever since I started working at Odyssey 5 years ago.
yeah.
And you know, what amazed me is for people who don't know, the downtown adult house, what's the maximum capacity?
85.
85, and it's a house on 6th East between First South and South Temple,
Correct.
right? And it's hard to miss because we've got signs and it's white and blue and it's Odyssey colors. And it seems like you know what was your job before you were promoted?
I was the peer support supervisor,
Which means what?
which means I got to do my favorite thing in the whole world, and that is I'm the first face they get to see when they come to Odyssey House, right? I get to bring them into the house, help make them comfortable, make sure all their needs are met, make their phone calls, tell their families where they are, help them learn the process and all the things that we do there. Yeah, get to
And you, it seemed to me like you knew all 85 of those people.
Oh, absolutely.
That's
Yes.
hard to do.
I know them all very well.
And,
It's hard.
and my sense was you love them all.
Absolutely.
Describe that to me. Is it because you can relate or what?
Yes, absolutely. I know where they're at. I've been there. I know how they're feeling. I can share my experience to help them with theirs. And in turn, their experience helps me too. You know, so yeah, we do it together.
I bring up your name to some of your clients and they say, we love Tracy. And it doesn't mean that you're easy and that they can skirt the rules
Oh,
or
no.
anything else, right?
No, not at all. I'm always pulling them up. We don't break rules. And that's super important is the small rules, right? We need to learn how to live with the rules because most of them haven't had, well, they've had rules, but they haven't lived by them for a long time. And so just getting used to that again and being super repetitive and just helping them through just the basics.
And it is a big deal, and people don't realize that. Little things like making your bed
Making your
every
bed,
day
yeah.
and keeping the room clean, and I mean, stuff like you think, well, I learned that when I was a kid.
Yeah, some of these guys haven't.
And now you've been promoted to,
Program manager,
which means you're running the whole place.
pretty much.
That's quite a job.
With help, I got some amazing peers. So, yeah, I'm still learning. I'm brand new at it. So,
Do you like it so far?
I'm so excited. Yeah, it's great.
I was excited when I heard you were promoted. Let's talk about a somber issue that we all have to deal with. Is a lot of the people that you have gotten close to in the program, either as clients or as staff, not a lot, but some of the people have died from overdoses. And you are crushed by some of those circumstances.
In my book, it's a lot. Yeah, I've lost quite a few people I was really close to. Half of my support system, my own personal support system, they're gone now. Yeah, it's devastating. And yeah, clients, we think they're going to make it, and it only takes once. It's just one bad choice, right?
How do you deal with that? I mean, does your mind ever go, I want to numb myself with drugs?
Not so much anymore. Now it's like, who am I going to call? We have the best recovery community on the planet. I'm positive of it. I talk to people from other states, and they're like, you guys do what? We're tight. The whole recovery community in Salt Lake is amazing. And so there's this huge support system. And when things like that happen, your phone doesn't stop ringing because, I mean, it's people maybe I haven't talked to in 2 years or so, but they'll call, hey, how are you? What can I do to help support you? You know, so yeah, there's lots of support for people in recovery.
People outside the recovery community would say, doesn't that, okay, like, and me too, with some of the people that I've known as Odyssey clients, they know that each time they could die.
Mm-hmm.
So why do they still do it?
That's a good question. It's a good question. It's sometimes it's just going back to what you know, it's comfortable. I know this is going to work. I know I'm going to feel better. But things get too rough,
It's like there's a silly story in the AA Big Book about a guy who keeps walking out in the street and gets hit by a car and he loses a limb, and then he walks back out in the street and loses another limb.
Yeah.
And it doesn't make any sense to a person who has not experienced addiction.
Yeah. Yeah, it's horrible. It completely takes away your any reasoning, thought process that you have, right? So, yeah, I don't know why we do it, but I know people that have been sober 2-3 years, and they're just like, okay, just one time, and it ends their life. Yeah, it's devastating.
People don't understand when you're dealing with something like opiates, you build up a tolerance, and so if you and I are sober, the person who's not, we couldn't do the amount of opiates that they do without
Absolutely
overdosing,
not.
right?
Right.
So a lot of the time when people have get out of jail or whatever and have been forced to be clean for a while and do the same amount of dope that they did before, they die.
Absolutely. Yeah.
How can we prevent that?
I wish I had the answers. Now we have things like harm reduction, right? So we're just making sure everybody has Narcan, because we're not going to stop them from using, not until
Right.
they get some kind of treatment. And so it's just making sure that they're safe in the process, I guess, is all we can do.
Describe when I take some of our clients to like VOA detox, where people are detoxing from whatever substance they were using. They all say, the word on the street is that Odyssey is the hardest program in the world. And so if I have my choice of any program, I prefer something other than Odyssey. Describe why people think Odyssey is that hard.
Well, I hear it all the time. So we're a behavior modification program. We're not going to smack your hand and say, don't do drugs. We're going to work on all the behaviors that brought us to addiction to begin with, right? And that's hard. These are big life changes. A lot of other treatment centers, you get to smoke cigarettes, you get to go to work and all the things. But at Odyssey House, we're going to keep you in the house, and we're going to work on these little behaviors until you get it. And then they move up in the program, and then they get to go do things. And yeah, it's very difficult. We have lots of rules that don't make sense when you come in.
Right.
What do you mean I can't talk to her? Or,
Yeah. One of our rules, because we're a co-ed facility, is that you can't, like a male and a female, can't talk to each other without a third person being there.
Yep.
And there's
Somebody
a
needs
reason
to
for
be
that.
aware. Yeah, there's lots of reasons for that, right?
Yeah.
It protects everybody. Yeah, someone needs to be aware of your conversation.
And you have to enforce that.
Yes, and
Which
they
is
get
difficult.
so mad. I'm an adult. I can talk to whoever I want. Yes, you are an adult, but this is what we're doing here. Yeah.
And we do have people who walk out. What do you, And I understand we make it, I've never been there when somebody walks out, and I understand you make an effort to talk to them before they walk out if you have an opportunity to do so. What do you say to them?
I'm usually, I don't know, I got a pretty high percentage rate of talking people into staying. We're going to play the tape through. Where are you going to go? What is your PO going to say? Because I have to call your PO when you leave. What's your mom going to say? You know, I'm going to call your daughter. What is she going to say?
Right.
You know? And they're like, oh, Tracy, stop. Well, no, let's be real. What is that going to look like? Is this better than prison? You know, because a lot of these guys you're going back to prison if they don't succeed. So.
You brought up the recovery community, and in my opinion, that's one of the most important things for people to stay involved in when they get out of jail or get out of treatment or get out of whatever, if they're trying to stay clean. Describe, and we do have a huge recovery community. Describe it for people who don't know what the recovery community is, what you guys all do.
Well, you know, we always say the opposite of addiction is connection,
Right.
right? And so the connections that we make in the community, we have softball teams, we have volleyball teams, bowling leagues. Everybody gets together and hangs out. We do community service, outreach programs, just get together and hang out with healthy people.
And places like USERA even do stuff like they have Friday night family movie nights and
Yeah.
stuff like that.
Yeah.
And I love golf, and I used to get drunk all the time every time I'd play golf. And there's a sober golf group too.
Oh, is there?
You
I didn't know.
that? Yeah,
Look at all the things. They have a hiking group now too.
a sober hiking group.
Yes. Yes.
And for people who have loved ones who are struggling, it would make so much sense to get them involved in the recovery community. How would some? Because I've had people in our family support group saying, my kid doesn't want to have anything to do with the recovery community. How do you get involved with the recovery community?
Find out what their interest is. What do you like to do, and let's go.
And what would you do? Would you Google it? Would you?
Oh, sure. You can probably Facebook would be the best place to go for all of our programs. You'll find BAM, Addicted We Stand, USARA. They're all on there. Yeah, and just find out what events are going on and show up. And every single person that walks into that group, no matter where it's at, will be welcomed with open arms. That's just how we are.
And nobody judges people.
Nope.
I think people in recovery are some of the most fun people to be around
I
because
agree.
they're non-judgmental.
I agree.
Because you've been through it, I've been through it, and we understand, you know.
Yeah, absolutely.
They may have been different routes, but we've all been
Yeah.
through it, right?
Yeah.
Do you think you'll ever use again?
Absolutely not.
You say that with a lot of conviction. Because I
I
can't.
hope not. I hope not. Let's say that.
I can't say that I'll never drink again, but I've been clean for 10 years, so I hope I'll never drink
I
again.
hope I will never use again.
And that's all we can do, really. It's, you know, the first time I tried to get clean, I looked, because alcohol had been such an important part of my life for decades, I thought, how can I go, for the rest of my life, I can't drink? And I couldn't deal with that. But then I had a really good sponsor who said, don't look at it like that, just deal with today.
Today. Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
and it worked.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden those
Absolutely.
days begin to pile up,
Right.
you know. How long have you been?
I will have 8 years in January.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
And you're gonna stay, you'd better stay with Odyssey. You're one of our best people.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that.
I'm so glad you decided to stop by and share your wisdom and your story.
Thank you for having me.
You're an inspiration, not to mention the fact that you're one of the best people I call to work there. Because in my job at Odyssey, I have to find, I'll have TV stations or something call and say, we're looking for a meth addict in recovery. And I call Tracy, and and it has to be somebody who's willing to sign a release of information
Right.
and admit the fact that they're in our program because we're governed by HIPAA. And you, every time I call you, you find someone.
Yeah.
It's because you know them.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for all you do at Odyssey, and thank you for being part of our
Thank you.
podcast today. And thank you for watching another edition of Odyssey House Journals.